Hi guys! So today we are going to answer 10 questions that I have received in the past, I think 2 weeks. And they're basically questions from people that want answers. So here we go. Number 1. Do you know when you're about to disassociate and can switching hurt? Back then I didn't. Actually, it got to be to the point where I would disassociate so bad. If I can remember right, I think in like 2016, 2017, one year I ended up 14 times in the ER, and then the year after that 16 times in the ER. And it was really confusing to me because I didn't know what was wrong. It seemed like my blood pressure would jump, I would get sick, I would have somatic symptoms that would be very painful in my body, but I didn't know they were somatic at the time. I thought they were real. So I would get pain in my side because at that time I thought it was something serious, when here my brain was giving me a somatic symptom that I would feel from an alter based on my past. Once I started about 5 years into therapy, the intense therapy I was going through, I knew that it was DID and I could work on it more. And as that got better, now, like today, I can usually feel it coming on. And so what'll happen is I get this hot flush where it's just, I know it's coming. I can get rapid heartbeat, I can get blood pressure spikes, body temperature spikes, somatic pain in my body, depending on the alter. And for me, my personal experience, it seems like the littler the alter, the more pain I get with the switch. So, does a switch hurt? Yes, it can very much. It can actually feel like death at times. But with the intense therapy that I get talked through it. I know it's not real now. I know if I work through it, it will go away. So I hope that answers that question. Number 2. What are some of the books you have read that helped you the most? I love that question. What I'll do is I will show you a quick clip of every book that I have read from the very beginning. Keep in mind there'll be some PTSD, BPD, trauma, DID, and mental health books. So here them are. Okay, number 3. Why do you wear a medical bracelet for your DID, and is it a requirement? No, it's not a requirement. Back in, I think it was, gosh, I can't remember when I want to say like, I don't remember. It was so long ago when I was told to get a medical bracelet. The reason I got the medical bracelet was because I'd have spells outside of my home or in public where I'd just blank out. I wouldn't move, I'd shake, I'd be upset. And the reason for the medical bracelet was to help police officers or a stranger to know that, you know, I have a medical issue. And my medical bracelet is, if you look, it's actually, I went through 5 of them. And the reason is because littles will pull it off. So I literally had to get a dementia bracelet that locks on so they would quit breaking it. And on my medical bracelet is a emergency number to my therapist and for my husband. So if there is a time that I am out by myself, if I have a dissociative spell and I end up in a hospital or I end up at a police station, they can get to me and they'll notice it. So I hope that answers that question. Like I'd stated, it's not a requirement, but for me it is, because it helps. It's the same with my car. I have a sticker on my car that I had someone make for DID, so that way if an officer pulls me over, they're aware that I have a dissociative disorder. So hope that answers that question. Number 4, how do you know your therapist is right for you? I guess I can give you 3 standard rules for that. For me, number 1 is to make sure that this therapist that you're looking into specializes in DID and dissociative disorders. That is the number 1 issue, because if they're not specialized in it, they're not going to be able to get the assessments for you. They're not going to be able to work with you or understand the disorder. And then I guess another requirement I think would be is healthy boundaries. Some therapists cross boundaries too much. Some don't cross boundaries enough. So every person that has a dissociative disorder has different abuse, different issues. So find one that fits your needs. And another thing I always talk about is to make sure that you're going there to work on you. A therapist is a tool to help you. So you're not going there to please the therapist. Try to detour from that, because if you're going there to try to please the therapist, it's not going to get you anywhere. Okay? You want to be able to connect with your therapist on a very personal level, because you're going to be talking about a lot of things that are very difficult. So I would say after like 2 or 3 months, if it doesn't feel like it's working, or you feel like there is trust issues, find another one, because you want to be able to 100% trust that person to be your tool, to notice your switches, to notice your panics, and yet keep a boundary. So boundary-wise, I'll give you an example. My littles like to be touched. They like to be hugged. They like to be read to. They like to be close to somebody. And my therapist will not reach out for them. That's a boundary. They have to reach for her. They have to go to her. And that's probably pretty hard for some therapists, and some therapists don't allow touch. For littles, for me, it had to be a requirement because it was a need that was not filled as a child. So my therapist, is there for me. She's a tool for these smaller alters. So when they're done or they go away, she will step back. Unless I decide as an adult that I need a hug, or I'm crying, or I'm shaking, I will reach out for her now, which has been happening in the past year. And another thing you want to do is with a therapist, you want to make sure they're trained in multiple tactics. And they're willing to learn more or read more or to take more classes. EMDR, CBT, DBT, and EFT are psychotherapy tactics that help, but then there's other tactics that meet your needs. Like for me, I have tactics that personally work for me. Bilateral music works for my littles, they work for me, they work for pretty much all of us. And it's a stimulant that helps an emotion to thrush itself out. For me, having an emotion while I'm viewing a flashback is very intense, but it also helps me to heal. So I hope that answers that. Now this next question was kind of rude, but I decided to add it in anyway. Number 5, why do you want to connect your therapist with your physician? That's stupid. It's not stupid. It's a very important thing actually, because your physician takes care of your medical needs, and your medical needs need to connect to your mental health needs. And the reason I say that is, again, the somatic symptoms. There may be a symptom that's really physical and it doesn't feel good, and you might not know, is this physical? Is this somatic? If you connect your therapist with your physician, they can work on that. And for me, on a more personal level, my therapist goes to every doctor's appointment because it is something that makes me feel comfortable being in that setting, because hospitals make me very nervous. They make me very scared. So having my therapist there is a tool for me to get through that exam, whatever it may be. And it also helps because my physician and my therapist can touch bases on my disorder. Also my side symptoms like my PTSD, my anxiety, my insomnia, what kind of medication am I on? Is the medication working? These are very important things. It's not stupid by any means. So I hope that answers that question. Number 6. When you talk about seeing your alter's memories, what do you mean? Aren't them your memories too? I'm confused. Okay, so I'm going to explain, I have explained this in previous videos. I'm going through trying to integrate, which is a process I've been at for about half a year, maybe a little longer. And what happens is when an alter is out, they take over my mouth, my body, but I have partial awareness to some of them. So what happens is with that partial awareness, I get stuck in a phase where I can't move, I can't see, but I can hear my therapist. And what happens is when she knows my eyes get in that blank spell, they actually dilate because I'm not there. I'm literally seeing whatever this alter is talking about and working on. So they are my memories. You are correct on that. But the alter holds the memories because I was too afraid and too traumatized to deal with them, hence the amnesic barrier issue. So what happens is, now that I've been at therapy, intense therapy for about 8 years, I am starting to see what they're showing me. So an alter will want me to see a painful memory, okay? And when I'm viewing that memory, it's very intense, it's very difficult. And if I don't process through it, it will repeat itself and repeat itself. And it's like getting stung over and over, it just won't stop. So when I had my first experience of completely getting through a memory, the shaking, the panic, the bawling, the screaming out, I literally wanted to die. And I literally screamed that out to my therapist. I hate my alters. I hate this disorder. I don't want to do this anymore. But then about 5-10 minutes later, I felt this relief. And I actually felt this alter back off to where I could be out. And I felt good. And I was like, I want to do that again. So it was like, okay, I'm going to keep doing this. So the past year has been going through that process, seeing a memory. I hope that explains some of it. So yes, they are my memories. It's just because of the amnesic barrier with an alter and the traumatization I've been through, it took me years to connect the two. So once an alter starts to show you the memories, try to view them. Have your therapist talk to you while you're viewing them. I can always hear my therapist in my ear. It's just a memory, Eva. It's okay. You're in my office. What do you see? What do you smell? Where are you at? What's going on? And if I get to speak, I get to speak. If I don't, she knows I'm still viewing it. And all of a sudden I get these intense shakes. I'm sweating because everything in my body is fighting against it. I get somatic symptoms where I'll be holding an arm or dealing with an issue, So I hope that answers that question. Okay, question number 7. Do you have self-harm issues with your DID? And if you do, how do you get that under control? Yes, I've had self-harm issues since I was about 14 years old. Alters have an issue with self-harming the body at times to trigger something, an emotion. It's like a coping mechanism for some. And I have very deep embedded scars on my arms from cutting, burning, things that the alters have done to me. In the past, way back in like the 2000s and things like that, it got to the point where they were harming me so bad that I've required stitching or huge bandages, things like that. Over time, doing the therapy I've been doing, it's been way less. Now it's more of a coping mechanism, hence the reason I cut my nails short, because alters will dig into me. And it's basically to get my attention. They want me to see that memory. A lot of it has to do with my past and the severe cult abuse, old Roman Catholic cult abuse that I've been through. I had a nun that was very abusive. She'd smack me in the back of the head. Now that I'm starting to get the integration process, my memory is a lot better. But there was things that woman did to me that don't even seem plausible at times. I would get stuck in the hip with midazolam to knock me out, and they used the needles out of the barn that they used on the calves. So I actually have scars on my hip from that. She would pinch me with pliers. She would starve me. She would not give me water for days. And the reason for her tactics was she thought this DID, which back then wasn't noticed, it still isn't where I live really much. She thought it was like a possession thing. And she would holler out, these demonic things and just horrible things. And, that's why I have a real issue with some people laughing or joking or making depictions of cult abuse. And that's something I think needs to be brought to awareness too, is, severe cult abuse is not something to joke about. It's very painful and it's very hard. And I would say those were probably the hardest memories I had to go through. I thank God every day that she's in prison now, because she tried to steal children. She tortured children. She'd yell at them till they pissed themselves. She was a horrible woman. And I think the biggest issue I have is using filters off of TikTok to distinguish your altars with demonic, disgusting behavior. I have a problem with that. And another thing I want to bring up is people that have been through cult abuse usually carry something back with them. They have something. And you never see this with people on TikTok. You never see them show their old dress wear, their images. I mean, I have a whole box full of stuff that I had brought back, stuff that I had stolen. My altars would take things because we wanted to remember. We wanted to figure out what was going on. They wanted to register me to remember, and I didn't want to at first. This year was probably the hardest year working on that. So, self-harm issues are very difficult, especially if you've been in cult abuse and other issues. It seems to be something that comes with DID for a lot of people that suffer from it. So I hope that answers. Okay, question number 8. Does your husband call your altars by their names? No, he does not. He kind of know. He will know who's out, but he does not say, who am I talking to? He pretty much knows who he is talking to, or he'll have nicknames. He'll call me mama. He'll call the littles, hey, little one. And the reason is because if he was to really push the name separation thing, it makes it harder to heal from the disorder itself, because you're separating what you are. So, a lot of people, they like to separate, have names, separate clothing, all that. And my healing process is based on the reparenting role through the Colin Ross Institute, which I talk about a lot about. And it's actually something that you shouldn't do according to their work. Hence, Colin Ross talks in vivid detail about how showing littles their hands, to say, are those your hands? And they will see the age. If he can, he'll show them their face, their voice. And the idea is to get them to notice who they are, hence heal you and your altar at the same time. So I hope that answers that question. Number 9, how do you keep your littles from eating bad food? I love that question. Yes, I deal with that a lot, and I think it's a great question. Again, I'm going to point out the reparenting role. If your therapist can take a class in the trauma model psychotherapy education, that would be really good, because the idea is littles are going to pop out, especially in therapy. If they want to work on stuff and they start trusting your therapist, they're going to want to be with your therapist, because your therapist is their parent, and that's okay. That's the good part about it. You want your therapist to have that parental role with them, because it's going to heal them. It's going to show them love, affection, how to trust them. And then eventually your therapist is going to move into teaching you those same tactics. So how do I keep my littles from eating bad food? Like any parent, a child has restrictions. Some that wet the bed don't get water, an hour or two before bed. Same depiction with an adult. More or less littles in an adult body. So then you got to go by the rules. Candy, my therapist worked very much with my littles, 4 and 6. One is 4 years old, one is 6 years old. They go by numbers, which Colin Rouse found interesting at the time that he was helping us. The idea is to introduce them into more healthy foods. So instead of junk food like Starbursts per se, you can let them have 1 or 2. The idea, like my therapist would say, yeah, you can have this, you can have 2, and the same applied at home. We would hide the candy. I had littles hiding food in the fridge, and I didn't know it, and we had food spoil. They hide food. They as a child, if you don't get food, littles will hide food. It's part of their nature. So the idea is to give them things that are healthy. So up in the bedroom above me, which is the littles' room, there's fruit snacks. There is things that are more healthy for them to pop into their mouth and satisfy them. And that's the thing. If you satisfy your littles and they get the things they need, they go away actually pretty much quicker. So, they'll get tired, for me anyway, they get tired, they lay down, and I get back out, and I'm like, okay, this happened again. So I hope that answers that question. And the last question, which was funny because I was just talking about littles. Last question, number 10. Do your littles come out when you see kids or babies? I'm sorry if this is a dumb question. It's not a dumb question. My Alter 4, Alter 6, and Alter 12, they will see children and they will get I can feel the excitement inside, but they're actually quite petrified of being around children. But keep in mind, this is my own personal experience. Growing up, I was not around other children barely at all. So, and that's where my memories are starting to come back. Like Alter 4 had no idea what it was like to interact with normal children. Even at school, I struggled with that. There's stuff in my paperwork showing the oddness of my behavior. I got held back for speech issues and other things. Eventually, when the documentary gets done, you'll understand more. But no, my littles usually don't want to play with children. They actually are very shy. They have a lot of issues from the severe abuse they've been through. It actually took my therapist almost a year and a half just to get 4 to talk. And six, on the other hand, 6 is more bubbly. She likes to chat. She likes to do things. But she also had issues with that. So even like giving, when I went through having my children born, it was actually really strange now that I get more of my memories back, because there are times where, like Alter 6, I'd be trying to take care of the baby and she'd get upset. And Alter 6 would hold her, but she'd set her down in the crib right away because she didn't want to. She was scared. She never had interaction with babies when she was little, so she's not going to interact with them now. The nice thing is, littles don't stay out very long because of the raise in heart rate and the anxiety on the body from a little, because keep in mind, they think they're little. So it raises your blood pressure, raises your sugar levels. I've even had my white blood cell count off thanks to littles. So they don't last long. They tire the body. And when I come to, I literally feel like I got done having a heart attack. So they don't last long. And then with my second daughter, it was a lot easier because my husband knew something wasn't right. He'd take over. Having my first daughter was more of an issue because there were times 15, 20 minutes she'd have to cry for a little bit till I would get back. I'd hear it, and then either me or an adult or teen alter would take over. All alters were very good with my kids. They loved my kids very much. Some were a little more into discipline than others, but nothing to that severe point. And my children are very smart, very educated, very happy children. Both of them are straight A's. My one is still in school. The other one is graduated and moved on. She works 2 jobs. She's not looking for a relationship yet or nothing like that. She's a very good kid, and she, actually works in a nursing home to help people with dementia and stuff. She's very educated, very happy child. So I just want to point that out, that yes, people with DID can be parents, and I'm really getting sick of hearing that on various apps that, you know, people shouldn't have children. There are some people that probably shouldn't. DID parents, the people that I know that really have it, are very good parents, and they're very protective parents, and their kids actually are raised in a way that help them to actually feel more and see more. I'll give you an example. Jane Hart, Kim Noble, Trudy Chase, her daughter is actually, if I remember right, Trudy Chase's daughter is actually a therapist herself. These children, because of growing up with alters and growing up with people that are a little bit different with various varieties of age, these children, that was normal for them. So it's not traumatizing them. It's actually teaching them variations of age to work with. So are there some parents that are horrible parents that had DID? Just like any other normal parent with a mental disorder or not, there are always going to be bad parents. But, you know, the thing was, I can remember when I found out I was pregnant, I was petrified. But it was odd because as the months went by, the alters became aware there was something going on. Even the littles, they knew what pregnancy was. Growing up on a farm, it's pretty obvious. So it wasn't too difficult to figure out what was going to happen. And in the hospital setting, littles weren't really out. They didn't, during the birth of my children, there was mixed mindsets going on. So I even have pictures of where you can see my eyes are dilated. Something's not right. I'd have switches every contraction. Things were really confusing. But the thing is, the nurses and doctor really didn't notice too much, other than that was written in my paperwork, that I had severe ups and downs and mood swings. So but if you don't know it's DID, how are they going to know elsewhere? It's a hidden disorder, as Dr. Robinson and Colin Ross and Melissa Kaufman talks about. So, all right, so I hope that answered all 10 questions. I hope you found this useful. You're more than welcome to use it in your therapy. And thank you for the questions. Keep them coming. So that's all I have today. Loves. Bye.